Hi there, and thank you for joining me for the first in my series of watercolor floral tutorials. These are extra fun because I've actually sketched these out ahead of time, and you can visit my website linked below to download the sketch and trace it onto watercolor paper, or you can even print it on cardstock. There are instructions on how to do so and links in my show notes down below. I'm going to start out by first taping these off, and I'm using painter's tape because it just happens to be what I have on hand. But this kind of prevents any of the paper from getting bubbly once I add water to it. You can also iron out paper once you've painted on it and flatten it out. A lot of people don't realize that. But if your paper ever gets wrinkly or bubbly, it's a great way to squish it all back down. There are instructions, as I said, down in the show notes below. Now, what I'm doing for all these, and you'll see I'm kind of doing this all at once because I have a bunch of them coming, but I'm going to use my taupe color, and I'm going to just create a nice wash and let it completely dry before I add my flowers on there. It just kind of helps everything pop. And then I carefully peel off this tape, and I'm ready to go. All right, guys, this is my second live painting, and I'm so excited. I feel like I finally have it down. We'll see how this goes. But I'm going to go ahead and get started with my first design in this series of pre-sketched paintings. If you caught my video yesterday, you'll see that I actually have sketched these, and I'm going to be putting these on my website. You'll be able to download them for free and then paint along, which will be really fun. And my intention for these is to provide sort of a mini mom vacation if you want to give your kids some paint for a couple minutes and go get some emails checked. These are also really fun for adults to practice if you're feeling creative too. But this is just a wonderful little quick. These videos are all about 20 minutes each. So just enough time to get in some practice, but not so labor intensive as starting a whole design from scratch. These are all, you'll be able to trace these at home on watercolor paper. You can print out, there are some cardstocks that you can use in your inkjet printer. Yesterday I went and I painted the backgrounds on all of these. So this is nice and dry. And now this is a chamomile flower bundle. I'm going to go through and just add with a lot of paint and a little bit of water. I really want my water to be nice and thick. And I'm going to add a nice layer of just some white petals. And I'm doing the white first because white watercolor doesn't always necessarily shine through when you've painted it over other paint. It can take a couple of layers to get thick enough to really pop. So my plan is to first paint the white petals, and then I'll be going through and adding the little yellow pops to the middle, and then I'll get in there with my green stems, and last but not least, I'll put a bow on it. Now this is one of my favorite little palettes to use with my kids, and I'll link these in the show notes at the bottom of the video if you're watching on YouTube. But it has a little bit of everything, and you can practice mixing colors if you want, or you can also just paint right out of the palette until you're comfortable doing that, because there's a whole bunch of different colors to choose from. You'll notice also that I'm trying to sort of paint from my left to the right and top to bottom, and that's because I'm right-handed. So if I don't do that, I'll end up putting my hand in wet paint. If you're left-handed, you should do right to left. But still top to bottom. I'm also trying to sort of paint over the pencil lines too, because pencil lines do look chic in a painting. It really makes it look like it's handmade, but I don't want too many pencil lines showing through. That'll kind of clean it up a little bit. You'll see too, when I go to get paint from my palette, I kind of go in from the side. And this is something I try to teach in my beginner watercolor classes. If you go straight down like this, you'll end up smashing the bristles of your brushes. And it makes it harder to keep a brush looking nice and thin and together. Especially with a little itty bitty brush like this, I want to keep those bristles all nice and together so that I can paint my details more easily. See, here's a little one in here. And again, I'm just really making sure that I have a lot of paint on my brush and just a little bit of water, because that'll really make the hue more intense. The more water, the lighter it'll be, the less color. Once again, if you're just tuning in, I had to sign off for a second there because I had a neighbor come by. But I am doing a series of pre-sketched designs that I'm posting to YouTube tutorials, and you'll be able to print out these little sheets and paint along as I go and follow along with me. And I had planned on adults enjoying this. Adults can practice their creative skills, learn something new, relive their old art class days. Or this is really fun for kids, and I love doing this sort of thing with my daughter. So you could both pull up a chair and do some painting together. Also, kids can really handle watercolor themselves pretty well. I don't really remember what age my kids started using watercolor paint. I started introducing it to them when they were young because it's one of those paints that cleans up really well with water. So as long as you don't have them on carpeting, it's pretty safe. What I love to do is just give my kids some paint and some paper and let them go to town. And then I get 20 minutes right there to just answer my emails or get a quick workout in. But it's nice to have a little video to guide them along the way. So I hope that you find a good purpose for this. But I definitely enjoy doing these. So what I'm doing here is I'm taking a lot of paint and just a little bit of water so that the color is going to be very intense. And that'll make it so that by painting over this brown background, my white will still pop, because white is pretty translucent. If you can hear deep breathing in the background, it's my dog. He's quite the mouth breather these days. Get a little bit more water. And as you can see, I'm coming in from the side. I never smash my paintbrush directly down in the palette. It's always best to take your paint from the side because that keeps your bristles nice and sharpened together. Otherwise they get all messy and then it's harder to paint the tiny details like these petals. There's something about this that's just so therapeutic, just filling in the blanks. This is a little upside down flower. Okay, next up, I'm going to clean off my brush by getting it really nice and wet, and then I'm going to gently, not smash it, I'm going to rub it on my paper towel. Now next up, I think I might actually do the stems because this will give all of these white petals a chance to dry. If I were to try to go through and paint the centers, some of these, the colors might kind of run together. So I'm just going to give these petals a little chance to dry. And for my green, let me see. I'm going to go for this more olive green, if you can see it, if you're going to use the same palette. It's this one right here. And you can certainly, if you're an advanced artist, you can mix your colors, but because this is going to be a beginner level class, I'm going to keep it nice and simple and just use the palette that I have in front of me. And this is my teeny tiny dapper brush. I made sure this one's nice and clean so I don't end up with any white in there. And I'm going to start up here and just kind of gently, barely pushing down, trace some of these lines. Being careful not to touch any of the white paint so that it runs. These are just sort of little leaves here. Chamomile are funny because they don't really have a ton of leaves, it's just sort of these little hairs. This one's got just a couple little stems. There we go. And here we go, some more of these little adding of the leaves. Got it. All right. Now that that white paint is a little bit drier, I'm going to go through it. I'm going to add some nice yellows for the center pieces. And the yellows I use, let's see, I think I might go with, let me move this up a little bit so that you can see better. Oh, hi guys, look at all you in here. I love it. Thanks for stopping in. All right. Let's use not the darkest one. I'm going to use this middle one and I'm going to get it nice and damp. I'm going to try to get a lot of paint on my brush for this one so that they really pop. Okay. I'm going to skip these. These ones that are still shiny are still wet. Hopefully by the time I get through there, they're going to be pretty dry. But for the time being, I'm going to stick with the dry ones. This area over here looks like it's a little safer. And once again, I'm going from right to left so that I don't put my hand in wet paint, and I'm paying extra close attention to not put my hand in the white petals that are still a little bit wet. And this guy's kind of tucked back in there a little bit. This is already looking so cheery and sunny. All right, I'm going to fill this one in, but I'm just not going to touch it to the yellow or to the white petals yet. Did I get all? Oh, there's one more in here. This guy was hiding on me. And I think this is one in here too. Yeah. All right. I'm going to clean off my brush once again. And while these are drying, I'm going to go through and I'm going to add my pink bow. What color bow? I guess I had planned on doing pink. Maybe we do something a little bit more neutral. What do we think? Maybe I'll do a red bow actually. I think I might go for this red. Here we go. Oops, sorry. Watch that camera. Yeah, that'll be fun. Getting this nice and damp again so that I can easily pull paint from it. Now this I don't want to be super, super dark, so I'm going to have a little bit more water on this one, and then later on I'm going to go in and I'm going to add in some shadows. So for now, keep this just kind of light. Yeah, red was the right choice. Okay. Now that this is all done, it looks like for the most part, I have a couple, this little yellow dot still looks like it's wet, but I think the rest of them are pretty okay. So I'm going to go back in now that my white paintbrush is nice and clean. I'm going to go back in and I'm just going to go over the white petals just to make sure that they pop because they're on a pretty dark background. You could also use gouache paint to do the white accents. Gouache is very similar to watercolor. It's actually what I use for my pet painting classes. It's a little bit more thick than watercolor, and it does just make it a little bit easier to layer on than watercolor does. And you can already see that these white petals that I've painted over are looking much brighter than the white petals that haven't been painted over yet. Oh, there's a little yellow dot that I forgot. I can go back and add that. This guy right here. I knew I was missing some of them. Got it. All right, I think I've got all my petals in there. Time for me to go back and get these little yellow guys that snuck by me. And I feel like I saw, oh yeah, this one right here. Okay, now, if you've gotten this far, you can just leave it because it looks beautiful, in my opinion at least. Or what I'm going to do here is I'm going to put a little bit of shadowing using my brown. I'm going to put just a tiny little bit of shadowing along the bottom edges of the yellow dots just to make them look like they have a little bit more dimension to them. So let's see, this little one right here. And I don't want a ton of paint, but that'll just kind of make it look a little bit more three-dimensional. I'm just going to kind of go in here and dab first. Again, just being careful not to hit the wet white paint. Gives it a little bit of texture too. And then when I'm done, I'll go with a little bit of water and just kind of blend them together a little bit. Okay, see how that just gives them a little bit more definition. Okay, now I'm going to take just a tiny little bit of yellow paint and just kind of rub them gently with my brush, just to blend in any areas that look a little too harsh, a little unnatural. There we go. Okay, and as I said, I'm going to add some shadowing on my red bow here. So some of these areas, if you look at a bow and fabric, there's a little bit of a dark area here, the knot might be a little darker, and then kind of some definition or some, I'm sorry, I'm speaking gibberish. There are some little areas here, kind of in the ribbon where it curls, that'll be a little bit darker. So let's add a little bit of shading. And I'm just gonna, now that this is dry, I'm gonna take some more of my red paint and I'm gonna add just a little bit of paint here. And then what I'll do is I'll come back and I'll add some, I'll blend it in when I'm done. A little bit right in this area. Okay. Add some water and just blend a little bit better. All right, good news. There we go. I'm feeling pretty good about it. What do you guys think? How does this look? Once again, if you're just joining me now, or if you came in late to the game, I will be putting this tutorial once again on YouTube, and there will be a link at the bottom where you can subscribe to my YouTube channel, where you can also download the sketch itself, and you can print it out from home, and you can either trace it or you can print it right on some cardstock paper and paint on that cardstock paper too. But I'll walk you through how to create your very own little bite-sized cute design of chamomile flowers Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This has been a fun little adventure for me and a totally new platform. So I'm very excited. If you have any questions, drop me a line anytime. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.